Okay, hello everyone. Thanks for joining this week to another Blitz contributor call. So let's go around and do sort of like stand-up style. So just talk about what you've been working on, um, and then like if you're planning on working something, you can talk about that too. And then we can just discuss like if anyone has anything to discuss about what you're working on, we can just do that while you're talking about it. Uh, And then if you don't have anything, like you can just say pass or whatever. It's totally fine too. So I'll go first. Um, so within the since the last in the past week, I got the website published live. So this is blitzjs.com. It has a new like marketing site or page, homepage, and then also a bunch of documentation. And it's not like the full design is not done yet. Christina's still working on it, but this is like a good enough version to get something out there that people can, use and read. And I'm really excited about the documentation. A lot of it I could like mostly copy and paste from Next.js and from React Query. So it's a good starting point. I think some of it can still be cleaned up and made a little bit better. But it's pretty sweet to be able to have like docs for everything, and then we can just like link to it anytime somebody asks. And then as we're adding new features, we can add docs in there. So pretty excited about that. Um, and then I'm also working, or right now I'm working on HTTP middleware, and I'm mostly done. I have a few small edge cases that I'm still working on, but it does work. So you can add middleware directly to a query or mutation. You export middleware, and then you can also add global middleware to blitzconfig.js, and so then it just like works. It's super sweet. So that should be I should have that finished up within a day or two, and then after that I'll start working on authentication, building out the um, like production session management package for the pseudocode that um, Rishab has already put together. So he's put most of the pseudocode together for that, and it just needs to like productionize and test and so forth. There's still a few things that I need to like figure out UX wise, but that should be good. And then last thing is tonight I'm recording a podcast, first podcast for Blitz. I forget the name of it, but it's a Jamstack podcast. I don't think it's like super huge, but it should be fun. So yeah, if we can talk about anything it's just covered. If you have anything.
Are
Nice.
you?
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Christina.
No, you're good. I was just gonna say the site is looking really good. Like,
Yeah.
like it looks really solid, Brandon. It looks great. Nice work.
Yeah, it looks awesome.
It's kind of iffy, but I'll take it.
I can speak to the design side. Sorry, I don't know if you were gonna.
Yeah,
If
no,
you were about
go
to
ahead.
talk, Adam. I actually have the homepage like pretty locked in. I'm just like tightening up the type styles so that we can just translate them across the rest of the website. And then my plan is to I can like share that if you'd want to see it now. But then my plan moving forward is to create a light mode version and then mobile designs and then move on to the rest of the site. So it's getting there.
Awesome. Have you done any work on like the design for the documentation typography?
No, I haven't. Yeah, I know we had that quick little conversation about like the dark mode for documentation and light mode for documentation with that purple background. So I'll definitely keep that in mind, like going forward into the documentation. That's when the type styles will definitely have to like expand a little bit more. I only have like what is it? I think I only have like 6 different type styles right now. So it'll definitely get bigger as I move into the rest of the site.
Okay. The other thing to think about for the documentation is the left sidebar menu. I'm not real happy with it right now because it takes up so much room.
Yeah.
I think it can be like kind of consolidated, cleaned up,
Cool. Yeah,
like
good to
maybe
know.
similar to Tailwind CSS.
Okay.
And then what was it? Oh, yeah, syntax highlighting. So for code in the documentation, we can customize all the colors. And so that is something that we can like make it fit the theme. Right now it does. It's just very simple. It just uses like purple for a few things, and the rest
Gotcha.
is. But yeah, it's just something else to keep in mind.
Cool. Yeah, that's great to know. I'm excited to get into the documentation design, honestly. I feel like that'll be like easier and it'll come
Yeah.
together like more nicely than, I don't know, some of the homepage stuff I was just struggling with because like looking at other product sites, I feel like a lot of companies tend to do just like a very, very similar layout. And I was trying to do something a little more exciting, but it's kind of difficult to break out of that.
Yeah. That's fine. Sometimes you just got to do what works.
I know. Well, for sure. It's gonna work.
Yep.
Anyway, yeah, that's all I got. Unless if I feel like I should maybe post where I'm at, like in one of the channels. I don't know. Is that a good
Yeah.
idea at this
Yeah.
point? Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. Cool.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, totally. Sorry, it's been just world's on fire, so I've been making very slow
Yeah.
progress.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Adam, did you have a question? Or?
Yeah, I was just curious if you were lumping authorization in with authentication, or are you focusing more
No.
on like the infrastructure first, and then we'll get to the
Yeah,
Aussie stuff.
first authentication, and then later I'll get to authorization.
Okay.
Robert, you want to go next?
Sure. I don't have a lot to update on, but I can say that the next thing I'd like to do, one question is, I know we talked about converting the components over to theme UI components.
Yes.
I feel like we could probably just wait until Christina's done with until like the website design's ready to really do that. I don't think there's any point in converting it.
Yeah.
Current site.
Yeah, I think you're probably right.
Might as well save time. It'll just be rework since we'd have to change all the CSS anywhere.
Yep.
And then, so that was gonna be my weekend thing. I was gonna go through all the components and do that, but then I realized it's just rework. So, I don't know. Maybe I'll come up with some more project management stuff to do, some issues, but just kind of waiting.
Yeah, that's fine.
Or looking at, maybe I'll try and do some documentation if there's any like hot items that you need covered or new docs for, we could put an issue up for that or something and work on that.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. You could comment those issues, any of them that needs to wait, and just like say that it's waiting so that somebody else doesn't jump on it.
Yeah, that's a good call.
I can't think of really. So we can maybe add some more like guides or like flesh out the tutorial more. So one thing the tutorial doesn't cover right now is generating. Right now it only has one or two top level models, I think, but it doesn't have any relationship between the models. And so that would be a good thing to add is how to use relationships. So you can use the Blitz generate like model and then -- parent and then the parent model, and it'll scaffold out those pages for you, and then you can customize them. So
There's any like upcoming features too that maybe we want documentation ahead of time for that you can like link to? That might
think
might be
so.
an idea too.
Like most, like, so I've added a checklist item for PRs for people, if you add a feature, to submit a PR with documentation for that feature.
Mhm.
So it should pretty much stay in sync. Actually, that brings up another point. I think currently we only have a master branch for the website docs, and I think we probably want to switch to like a master branch and a canary branch. And then the master is blitzjs.com. It's always like what documentation for the latest release, and then canary can be like pre-release things. So that way you can, when you add a feature, you can submit a PR to canary, and then we can like approve that or whatever and merge it in canary, and then whenever we make a release, we merge canary into master. So right now you can't merge it. If you merge it, then it's out there for everybody to see, even though the
Mhm.
release isn't ready yet. So that's something you could set up, Robert, if you want.
Sure. Cool. That's it for me.
Adam?
Yeah. So obviously, life in the world going on has been distracting. But my two big things landed this week, which were the model generation in the CLI as well as the installer rewrite. So the installer's in a really good place now, and we're pretty much like architecturally where the Gatsby folks are at. And so I've been starting to look through their architecture for recipes a little more in depth now, and it's quite interesting. When you run a Gatsby recipe, they actually start up a local GraphQL server, and they have a client server model where the server does all the processing and all the state management, and then they just send commands to the React front end, which I need to talk to them and figure out exactly what the philosophy was there, because it kind of gets a bit heavy-handed at times with the back and forth communication. It's like a little bit. It's nice to be able to update your state via like a GraphQL mutation, but it's a bit heavy-handed and having to like write queries and mutations in order to access application state. And so I need to figure out what they're doing there and kind of what the thought process is. I imagine there's something in the roadmap that they were like, they were going to need some kind of boundary there, and so they just decided to do it sooner rather than later. But anyway, all of that notwithstanding, the next thing on my list is start to look at what the common parts are there that we need extracted so we can start doing MDX recipes ourselves. And then at that point, Gatsby recipe stuff will just kind of work out. Like if you want to install a Gatsby recipe in a Blitz app, for example, like it would just kind of work. We would need to, we need to formalize our executors into components that are compatible with their API, but like they're, that's trivial at this point. And so that's kind of the next thing on my plate. And then the only other thing that I'm looking at is kind of the second half of model generation, which is now making pages aware, the page generators and all of our component generators aware of the models that they're being generated for. So rather than just generating with a numeric ID, regardless of what your model says, or rather than assuming you have a string name field on your model, actually pulling those fields into the generator. And that actually honestly looks like it's not going to be too bad. The stuff that the Prisma folks were able to give me with the data model metadata stuff is pretty handy. And so I'm hoping to have something workable there within the next couple of days.
Sweet.
Yeah, and that's about it for me right now. Is just installers and the code gen stuff.
So are we using anything from Gatsby yet for installers?
We're not using anything from them right now. The ink rewrite that went in was kind of the first step towards that. We just like all their stuff is written in React and they've got a custom renderer for it and everything. And so we just like we needed to move towards that component and declarative model. And now that we're there and all of our for example, like right now, all of the executors that actually like install dependencies and add code and stuff are React components now. And so, all that we have to do now is like we use our own APIs for writing to disk and installing dependencies and stuff like that. And it seems like those common tasks are what's going to be extracted out into the like new shared open source like MDX recipe library or whatever. And so, now that everything's in ink, like porting over to that new intermediate thing will be pretty easy, but we just had to kind of do this first chunk. So yeah, that's why the next step is now just kind of start to sync up with with Kyle and John and see what they're working on, see what they still need help with, and see what we can do to kind of make that stuff shared. We could release a v0.1 of recipes this week if we wanted to. We just got to get the directory up in GitHub and get some recipes in there. It's just that it's not going to be super accessible to write third-party recipes. I guess like relative to the MDX stuff, just because it's all TypeScript stuff, right? So you've got to like create an installer class and pass in all of your steps as a bare object, where the MDX stuff is obviously a little bit easier to get started with. But if we just wanted to publish the pure TypeScript ones as like a V1 just to get it out there, I could definitely have that ready this week.
How long do you think it would be to get the MDX working?
I mean, so getting MDX working just like purely just like, like not using any of the Gatsby stuff, just using our own implementation, probably this week or next week. Maybe a little bit. I just haven't played with their like the parser API too much, so that's going to be a little bit of a learning curve. Yeah. But again, that would be like MDX, but without any of the like Gatsby compat stuff. But again, also I think it's going to be similar to the React rewrite. Like once we're set up to like take an MDX, parse it, and execute it, like moving that bit of shared logic out into the new library is not going to be that challenging.
Okay. I think just go ahead and work on the recipe, the MDX recipe stuff.
All right.
Don't worry about
we
the
can get the
TypeScript
MDX
for now.
All right. Yeah.
The kind of in my head, it would be really, I think it's really good to have the recipe installer working for authentication. So, and that will be like probably not before 2 weeks that we would be ready for it.
Okay.
So
yeah.
maybe shoot for 2 weeks or something, maybe 3.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And at that point,
should be able to have it ready by then.
If we're ready for authentication and MDX isn't ready, then we can fall back to the TypeScript. But
yeah, definitely. But we should be able to have the MDX stuff by then. I can't imagine it will take 3 weeks to get that all sorted out.
Cool.
So yeah, that works for me.
Awesome. Fran, you want to go next?
So I've been mostly working on not the user part, but mainly our packages and how we're handling loading the config. So currently how we're handling the next.config.js or the blitz.config.js is that whenever we need them, we load them the different way. Sometimes we use the fs.json, sometimes we just read it, sometimes we require it, so on and so forth. I'm creating a config package that's going to be used to handle it. And the first time you call get config, it's going to also load it in the global namespace, so that every time after that you load it, you're not re-requiring the same file, you're just loading from the global config. So it's going to be a lot faster, which will allow us to finally finish that PR that I opened like a month ago and haven't finished because I wanted to do this first, to not warm up the Lambda functions if we don't have Lambda functions. So for example, I have a few Blitz apps hosted and they're all hosted on a server. And whenever I go to the Blitz UI in the browser, I always do a head request to just like warm up the server, and it's not actually warming up a Lambda, it's just pinging my server without a reason. So this will allow us to correctly read the target, and if the target is not serverless, which it won't be in most cases, unless we're deploying to Versal, for example, or AWS Lambda, we'll figure out how to do that with Blitz. It won't actually. So when we run Blitz build or just dev and prod, which also run the build command, the template for running the pre-warming whenever we run the RPC call just gets a parameter true or false if it's running a serverless environment or not. so it knows to preload, so like to pre-warm the Lambda or not. So mostly optimizing that. And after that, I'll probably be working on some tests. I implemented Cypress tests in the store example, so like the main example, and I also started working on Jest, but I haven't really gotten far with that. But when we finish that, we can have so we should add that to the docs, that we have examples for how you should test a Blitz app. So from end to end to component test, I'll also add snapshot tests and so on. So like just like show you all the types of tests that you can do. Rails does this really well. They show you how to use their framework. Our specs page is really good. You can see a lot of examples how to do really complex stuff that, for example, like regular JS stuff, for example, just doesn't really point to that stuff. Cypress has a lot of examples, but just doesn't really explain a lot of stuff. So we should actually give people just simple examples on how to do that, and not do something that, like, for example, Create React App does, where it just like generates a test file, which is like the app renders, and that's it. And then you have full test coverage if your app renders without crashing. Oh my God, really nice. So we should actually like have sensible examples that people could build off, and not actually have like true is true. Like that's not a good example of a test. So that's
that
the thing
sounds
I'll be
great.
working on after I finish the config and the serverless not warming up, or warming up when it's in server mode.
Awesome. I can probably use that git config package for the middleware implementation. Right now, I just wrote my own little scrappy thing to get the config because I need to get the middleware definition out of the config from inside the app. So once you have that done, we can switch over to that. Anyone else have comments on that? If not, Rudy can go.
Just one quick thought that we can probably make a unit test generator as well. Like especially once we have the model aware stuff. You know, if we generate pages, like even if they're not exhaustive, generate some basic unit tests for those pages, and like, hey, like this thing has a form component, and executes these queries, because we know all of that at build time anyway, or at generation time anyway.
The cool thing with that is that like we could generate both end-to-end tests and unit tests, and then like run them after we generate, and that could also be a great CI step, that we didn't mess something up. So we could so like in CI we could create a new app, scaffold a few models, and then run the tests that were generated with those scaffolds.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I just want to throw that out there. Like beyond, it's going to be a little more work than just getting the Jest stuff up and running in the examples, but there's definitely a world in the relatively near future where you can just do when you do Blitz generate anything, it'll just generate a test for you as well.
Yeah, I think that's good, as long as the test is useful.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's the big thing. But again, that's like the nice part is we have control over all that in the generator, unlike a lot of code gen stuff, and so we should be able to do that pretty easily.
Cool.
Yeah, nice. So yeah, what I've been sort of playing around with last little while, managed to finish extracting out the file pipeline, which was previously called the synchronizer, and extracted out the display package. What else have I done? Fixed a bug in with Blitz. There was an issue where we couldn't have functional next config. They're sort of like, so I've been working on a lot of next compatibility stuff, just in terms of because at the moment, like what I'm doing with my day job, I'm trying to actually get Blitz into a next app. So I'm sort of trying to enhance a next app with Blitz, which is why I kind of bang on about that stuff a little bit on GitHub. Yeah. Also, I've done some refactoring. Been working on like a universal a stream abstraction, which landed the other day. Currently, there's the thing I want to focus on as soon as possible is that there's some issues that some people are having with the file pipeline hanging, and so that's kind of my main focus at the moment. I'm trying to get debug that, and I'm having trouble reproducing it. So that's interesting. So what I plan to do is to first try and get more debugging ability into the file pipeline, so we get a really a better understanding. Like, so we can tell people it's just, oh, can you run this with an mverb set, so we can get sort of a better idea of what's going on in there, and then from that, hopefully, I can work out something. I have worked out it's close to the last stage that it gets stuck. Basically, the ready event doesn't make its way through the pipeline. So there might be some. Well, we might be able to do like do some hacks to solve that issue for them, but I prefer to really just understand exactly what's going on. So I've got one of the code bases, so I can have a play around. Although I still can't replicate it using their code base, which is a shame. So it's a bit of a mystery. I think it has to do with streams getting overloaded with work and then corking themselves. So if you've got a really fast CPU, that might happen. So it just sucks everything too quickly, and then the stream kind of runs out of sort of buffering room, and so it just stops, which is really great default node behavior you get. So yeah, which shouldn't be happening. So there could be something in the code base that I've missed, and that we've missed. It's not causing there's a library called Pump we're using, which should avoid that, but maybe there's a spot somewhere. I've got to go through it, work out if that's the problem. But yeah, so that's what I'm working on right now.
Cool. Very good. It's great to have your improvements and stuff on the server related code.
Yeah. Thanks.
So I think it's, we need a bigger sample size, obviously, but I think it's interesting just to go,
I don't have anything that got missed or. So hopefully, the big priority for overall is getting authentication done, and mainly I'm focusing on that. So wish me luck. All right, thanks for joining, everyone.
See you, everyone.
Yep.
Oh,
you all have a good week.
Hey, you too, Brandon.
Thanks, Brandon.
Yep. Bye.
See ya. Thanks.
Bye.
guys.
See ya.
Bye.